I'm Jen. So this is the video where I'm going to give a little talk about Steve Jobs and religion. It's a pretty interesting topic. Steve Jobs went to church intermittently when he was growing up, and at the age 13, he saw in a magazine that there were children starving in Africa, and he brought that magazine to the pastor of the church, and he said, does God know about this? And when he found out that, yes, of course, God knows about that because God knows about everything, he decided he really didn't want to follow Christianity's God because he didn't think a God who let that kind of suffering happen was a good God. And he went on actually in his late teens to study Zen Buddhism, which is really interesting because if you know anything about Steve Jobs, and I'm sure everyone's read the autobiography by now, he was not a nice person. He Buddhism teaches you obviously to be very nice to people. It obviously teaches you to not care about material things, and he was one of the biggest creators of material goods and driving people to buy material goods. So he got into Zen in his late about 19 years old. He actually even went over to India to do a spiritual quest. He did not find really what he was looking for, though, because he was never very calm. He was never very Zen. He still wasn't even nice. He came back to the U.S. and he met a man named Kobun Chino Atagawa, a Japanese priest who turned out to be a lifelong friend for him, and was very much teaching Steve Jobs about Zen Buddhism and helping him through all of this. But as his friend said, the more he met with the Japanese priest, the more he became self-important and unbearable. So while it seems that Steve Jobs was reaching out for some sort of religion to calm himself down, to make him a better person, he ultimately seemed to really fail at that. And he really failed because, ironically, he became the person who pushes us to buy Apple products, but a lot of his Zen training did show through in Apple products. They're minimalist, they're very intuitive, and that was something that Zen taught him. It's funny, Kobun died, his friend, the Japanese priest, in 2002, and Walter Isaacson's book doesn't really go over this time period, but it was very hard on Jobs. And when Jobs got older, he actually wasn't so much into Zen Buddhism anymore. He sort of went back and forth between it. It's so much that by the time that he was very sick, he said that he really didn't know what happened after we died. So he didn't believe one way or the other about either you just die and that's it, or there's something afterwards. He sort of joked that he never put on-off switches on Apple products because he didn't like the idea of you just click and it's off, just like life. So, well, the really interesting thing about Steve Jobs and religion, though, was his very last words were, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." And I think that's interesting because I think that shows that when he was dying, he was probably coming to an incredible realization about what happens when we die. Either he was seeing something that we couldn't, or he was realizing, that nothing happens. According to me, I think something does, but I think those words for him probably meant that he was seeing something and understanding finally that there was something more. And maybe he was understanding who he should have been praying to all along.